Hello, everyone. Here we are with our second episode on our podcast. And today we have Sharan Sammi joining us. Can you give us an introduction of who you are and a little bit about what we're going to be talking about today?
Yeah, definitely. And thank you, Maisie. I'm super excited to be here. So, hello, everybody. Hope you are doing well. So, as Maisie said, I'm Sharan Sammi. I'm a wife and I'm a mother of two beautiful earth angels. And I always mention my family first because my family are my number one highest value, and everything I do is for my family. But I was in the corporate banking world for 20 years. And then I literally decided to start my personal development journey over 19 years ago whilst working in the corporate banking world. And then I decided to leave the banking world to start my own business as a coaching and training business as a manifesting abundance mentor, intuitive energy healer, natural psychic medium, and sidereal Eastern 13 zodiac sign astrologist. And I just love what I do with a passion and having that work-life balance. So we're here today to just share magic on money, manifestation, and abundance.
Yes. So tell me, what was the switch for you whenever it came to leaving corporate America?
Yeah, definitely. Well, it came to a point where I was in the banking world for 20 years, just to give you a little bit of context. And I was single. I was living at home with my parents here in the UK. I was young, free, and single, traveled all over the place with my job, and I loved it with a passion in the banking industry. And what I found was I was accelerating at such a rapid pace because, and we'll talk about this shortly, because I worked on my money blocks and things like that. And so I ended up having a real high six-figure salary. But then it came to a point where I did meet my dream man. I got married, and it's been almost 13 years now, and had my two beautiful earth angels. And what I established was when I went back after my second maternity leave back into banking, having two young children, the job just didn't feel aligned. It was like I had no work-life balance. I was literally leaving the house at 6 o'clock in the morning, dropping my kiddies off at my parents. Bless, I had that support, working the whole day till 6 o'clock at night, picking the children up, absolutely shattered. It fundamentally affected my relationship with my husband because we didn't get quality time together. It was literally doing the whole dinner, bedtime routine, absolutely shattered, going to sleep to then start again the next day. So everything just then started to feel really misaligned, to the point where I was questioning myself, like, is this my life? Is this what it's all about? Just driven to work and just like feeling a little bit burnt out, and then not having time properly with my family, with my children, my husband, and also my personal development. I was in the personal development world. I loved the coaching and the healing, which I did. And I call it in the corporate shadow because I did it in my spare time, weekends, evenings, and taking annual leave. Whereas the daytime, I was really working full time. So something had to change. So that was the catalyst really for me, Maisie. I just felt really misaligned, and I had to make those changes. And it was a difficult decision because I had so many fears, like, as you probably would do, with a big life-changing, situation. Like, do you leave corporate world? Do you leave your job to start your business? And how's it going to affect the work-life balance? How's it going to affect your income? So there was a lot of different challenges along the way.
I love this. I love this. Thank you for
Thank
sharing
you.
that. So and you mentioned this early on that you said you were already working through money blocks. It was helping you go up the corporate ladder. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So I feel like when I was at university, um, I was doing, first of all, a financial marketing, a financial banking degree, which was, all of the qualifications. So I was always like having that kind of money mindset. And then when I was when I was studying at university, I started then cashiering for a local bank, which is like a global bank. But locally, I was then around all of this money, all of this money coming to me because I was, cashiering. And I loved that with a passion. But then when I then graduated, I got three graduate job offers. So I re-interviewed the managers back to say, well, why should I work for you? And which landed me a 10.1% pay rise before I'd even stepped foot in the corporate office, which was great because I thought this is absolutely amazing. I've manifested this pay rise without even, thinking it was possible. But then that's when it hit me, because I got into the corporate office environment. And for those of you listening out there, if you've got jobs or if you're working in the kind of office, corporate kind of land, the environment can be a little bit cutthroat, very negative, I'm going to say. And I was in a male-dominated industry as well. So it was quite tough. So I started on this graduate position for a year, and I got so much resistance from a lot of people in the office, which meant, to cut it a long story short, I was like the glorified making the cups and teas and the coffees and, just give all the filing and faxing to Sharon, because she's the graduate, she's the newbie. She has to like start from the bottom of the ladder, which is sometimes the mentality of loads of people out there, oh, I have to start at the bottom of the ladder and I have to work myself up the ladder for years and years and years to progress or even get a promotion. So that was my logical thinking, because everybody, the collective in the office, 50, 60 people in the office, was saying that to me. Oh, Sharon, you've got to start somewhere. You've got to make the teas and coffees. Even though I was on a graduate scheme and I was literally going out of the office on graduate training, on leadership development programs in different cities in the UK, which was fantastic. But then when I was back in that local office, the mentality of people around me started to affect me. It really started to affect my limiting beliefs, the fears. Oh, I've got to start at the bottom. I'm not going to be able to progress. So the one thing that I totally recall, which was a major limitation for me, is I decided to make this story. And this story was, I would like my income every single year, my annual income, to be exactly the same as my age. So that was my goal. So I was in the banking industry at 22 years old, after finishing graduation, after graduation from university. And then all of a sudden I'm like, got this aspiration. Oh, my income's got to be 22,000, and I'd got that 10.1% pay rise when I landed in the job. And then I was thinking, okay, so what's the goal next year? Oh, to get 23,000. So obviously with that kind of story and that goal, when I'm like 40, my goal's going to be 40,000. So I didn't properly think about it. But back then I thought that's a fantastic goal to have. And the mentality in the office was you've got to start from the bottom. And then what happened was fundamentally and this is the thing, you listening out there, you've got to be conscious of the people that you are around. So I was around 60 people, 50, 60 people with that kind of negative mentality. But then I started my personal development journey, and that kind of blew my mind. I was like exposed to all of these people that were empowered, that motivational, that were confident, that were inspiring. And I was like, oh, this is a completely different world I'm not used to, hello kind of thing. And it was fantastic. So then what that pushed me to do was actually challenge the limiting beliefs and the limitation that, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy enough. The whole imposter syndrome, like, who am I to want to progress, to expand, to go above and beyond the assistants in the corporate office, to want to become a director, a high salary person, and it was that whole challenging the status quo, challenging the whole imposter syndrome, that, oh, I'm a fraud. I have to start from the bottom because everybody's telling me I have to start from the bottom. So they do say, Maisie, don't they? Like, you're an average of the top 5 people you spend the most time with. So I was conscious of that quote, and that quote even today resonates so strongly. So I make sure I'm around the right people at the right time, and that really helps me to really aspire forward. So then what I did was I started working on my limiting beliefs, literally, like, I'm not good enough. My self-worth, my credibility, my confidence in particular, because, I had to be confident if I wanted to go for another role when everybody in the office were telling me, oh, no, you can't apply for anything. You need at least 3 years experience doing what you're doing. And bearing in mind, I was making teas and coffees and filing and faxing at that point, I wasn't getting like a push forward. So then this is the thing, listening out there. Once you make that fundamental decision that actually I'm better than this, I'm worthy, I can really do this. And also then it's having a role model, because I actually looked at somebody in the office and she was like a specialist coming in and out of the office. That wasn't her main place of work. And I just loved what she did, in terms of having the flexibility, which is what I love, having probably that high pay rise, being seen as like the go-to expert. And so I looked at her and I thought to myself, that's who I aspire to be like. And when I had that role model, I then something happened, because this is the thing with manifestation in the universe, because when you make that decision in your mind and you put it out there to the universe, through the power of your thoughts, and you don't know how, because sometimes we just don't know how is it going to happen? I don't possibly know, because I've got all this resistance and all this negativity in the office. But then when you put it out there and you say, actually, I do want to accelerate, I want to have a job role like she's got, and I want the flexibility, and you feel that emotion, because everything is led by the energetics, the emotional side. I didn't know how. And then all of a sudden, I'm at the train station going to this leadership program. And all of a sudden, I see this book. Okay. And what used to happen was, every time I used to go to the train station, I used to pick up this book and I used to read a couple of pages. But I never wanted to buy the book because of that whole limitation of, I've got to spend £10 on this book to help me develop. No, I'm not going to spend £10 on that. I'd rather go to the bar and buy a pina colada or something, or buy a really cheap dress or something. But that was the mentality of me back then. And then over probably about 6 weeks, every week I'd go to this bookstore at the train station, and I'd pick up this book and I'd read a little bit, and I thought, oh God, that's so insightful. I'm going to start doing that stuff. And this was a personal development book. And then one day I thought to myself, Sharon, what are you doing? Just buy the damn book. Just invest. So I spent £10 begrudgingly. I was like, oh my gosh, buy my first personal development book. And then I sat down, and do you know what? I kid you not, Maisie, and everybody listening out there, I read that cover to cover in probably the space of like 2 days. And that shifted certain stuff. Like, it's like, have you heard that concept of acting as if? Like, act as if, put yourself in that role. So I showed up in my graduate job suited, like literally, instead of just wearing a mismatch of like just a top and just trousers or a skirt and just not even bothering with my hair and makeup, I actually made a fundamental effort. I went to a proper nice shop and I bought myself some suits, like some proper business suits. I started putting my hair back, focusing on how am I presenting myself. Makeup, didn't have to be full on. It was just a little bit, maybe a little bit of a bracelet or something. And I acted the part like, I am that lady who my role model, I aspire to be like. I'm going to dress the part. So I showed up in my business suit. To everybody in the office then said to me, Sharon, are you going for a job interview? Why are you so dressed up for? I said, no, I just felt like dressing up. And then what happened, and this is the fundamental thing, because when you start changing your behavior, people around me in the office, the directors in the office, started treating me differently. They then started to invite me to banking client meetings. Yes, I was like the glorified note taker, but I was privy to those meetings. And I was like, I want to be a director. I want that person's job, because I was putting myself in that position. The other thing was, I got a Financial Times newspaper. I had no idea what was going on in the economy. So I was like, okay, acting as if the person that would do the job that I want would know about the economy. So let's buy the newspaper. So again, begrudgingly, I started buying the newspaper every day. And I wasn't really interested in, reading everything, but I read the Financial Times, the economy stuff, and I sat there in the office. So people didn't ask me to make the teas and coffees because I was too busy reading the newspaper. And I actually stood up for myself confidently and said, no, you know where the kettle is, and I'll have a hot chocolate, please. And I'd read the newspaper. And then the things that I learned about what was going on in the economy, in the client meetings, I had something to say. So I'd talk about the exchange rates, I'd talk about the interest rates, I'd talk about inflation and GDP and all of this really fantastic stuff. And that's the thing, I started getting recognized. Deep down, I was still feeling a bit shaky, like, who am I? Everybody around me are saying, oh, you can't do this, you shouldn't do this, you have to be in the job role for 3 years. And this is the thing, be careful who you listen to. So it was a journey.
I love this. Oh my gosh, there's so many things here.
Yeah.
You are the same. My great grandmother used to tell me who your friends are, I'll tell you who you are. And that
Yeah.
stuck with me growing up because they would always quote, my great grandmother was like super biblical, everything else. So she'd be like, bad company corrupts good character. And so she would continuously say those things. So it's still in my brain today of Who are the top 5 people that I hang out with? And when
Yeah.
somebody comes into my life that I'm like, you're not serving me, you're not adding value, you're taking value, it's like, okay, universe, find a way to make a move. Make a move, remove it because I don't like it. But I love that. I love the mindset. I love that you were acting the part. That's a big thing that I tell, my clients whenever they come in, because everybody's got self-worth wounds. I have self-worth wounds. It's like
Yeah.
self-worth onion. You're peeling back layers
Yeah.
and you're like healing yourself as you go. But even in that moment, like in that mindset, I have been, and I love this because you say about being privy to some of those meetings and things like that, like you were rising to the top.
Yeah.
That's what was happening. I had a client, same thing in corporate world. And she went from like seventh in line to second in command. They made a position for her. And I kept telling her, I was like, girl, you got to wear your feminine authority. You got to go into that place as if you were just one of those men that are in it, but you're doing it in a
Yeah.
feminine style that's not aggressive, it's not abrasive, it's loving, and it's knowing. It's holding that energy of I am. And so
Yeah.
I love that. I love all the things that you're saying. So another question that I have, whenever it comes to the work that you do, so when you're working with clients, what is your clientele? Like, tell us a little bit more about those people and how do you help them to excel in that money mindset?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you as well for that, Maisie. So I work with like ambitious corporate and professional women in industry. So whether you're working, whether you've got your own business, whether you're doing both. So a lot of people I find are doing both. So they've got their main job, whether their employment, and then they've also got maybe a side hustle. They want to start a business, or they're developing, growing their business, ready for them to then make that transition out of the corporate world into the business arena, as an entrepreneur full time. And so what I do is I work with them through their limitations. So whether it's their fears, their doubts, their insecurities, their limiting beliefs, the things that are stopping them, that are holding them back from reaching their full financial potential. So whether you're in business and you can't seem to be attracting the clients, or whether you're in the corporate world, you're employed and you can't seem to get that next pay rise, that promotion, or you just want to go for a new job, it's really helping people to realize their full financial potential, really healing their inner blocks, their mindset blocks, their money blocks, so that they can accelerate, so they can get money, basically. So get more money, because money changes. Yeah, money gives you that lifestyle. It's not automatically all about money. It's what money can give you. It can give you that lifestyle. It can give you that time freedom. It can give you the time to spend with your partner, with your children, doing the things that really create those abundant memories. So I help people activate their confidence, so they skyrocket their confidence, similar to what I needed when I was in the banking world, to discover their self-worth so that they can move forward, creating an abundant legacy, and also manifest the time freedom to create their life by design on their terms. So really, it's ultimately living the life, as I say, reaching your true greatness, where anything is possible.
I love that. And anything
Yeah.
is possible.
Yes, it is.
1000%. What is more of the process that you work with, or even some common beliefs or subconscious blocks that tend to come up whenever it
Yeah.
comes to money and having that balance and, where people's fears are?
Yeah. There's a lot of fears out there, okay? There's a lot of fears out there, but the most common ones that I find is, first of all, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough to have the job. I'm not good enough to have the pay rise. I'm not good enough to attract all of these clients. Who am I? That whole imposter syndrome of like, everybody else is better. Who am I? I'm not good enough. And then it goes to that fear of failure. Like, if I try and then I fail, what's the point? What's the point in me even, writing a social media post or applying for a job? What is the point? Because it's that fear of failure. And then it's also on the opposite end, the fear of success. Like, if I do get that pay rise, or I do, do fantastically well in my business, am I still going to be accepted by my friends, by my peers? And we spoke about that, Maisie. It's like, you're the average of the top 5 people you spend the most time with. And, if you're working on your own personal development and you excel and you up level, then what's going to happen? You may not be able to relate to the people that you once, that were in your social circle, if they're not on the same journey. So then you kind of meet new people and you evolve. So the most common is like, you've probably heard when you were a child, money doesn't grow on trees. That's so expensive. But also a lot of my clients have the conditioning of money comes in, but it never seems to stay. You know, I have this money come in and then it goes. I don't have enough money. You know, money never comes. I don't have enough. I'm struggling. You know, and these are all that low vibe, scarcity, limitation thoughts that then manifest the same. So what I do is I take my clients through a healing journey through various ways. They can work with me on a one-to-one basis, or they can, you know, join my Manifesting Money in Abundance group program, which goes through the 9 essential keys of the abundance blueprint. And it takes them through that journey of, first of all, realizing what is the big dream, what's the desire, having that awareness of where they are right now. 2, then having that bold vision. Where do they want to get to? And then we go deep into the second stage of the abundance system, which is like all about, okay, well, how are we going to get there? What is the old money story? What are the blocks? You know, I can't afford this. And if you're listening out there, and, you know, I'm going to ask you the question, when you go to the high street or the shopping mall, or, you know, the shopping center, when you go into, say, a clothes shop and you pick something like a dress, what is the first thing you do? Is it you look at the design, or is it you look at the price tag? And you make that decision based on, oh, can I afford it? You look at the price tag and you think, oh, is this worthy of me actually buying it? Shall I have a look at it first? Or do you look at the price tag and you think, oh, that's too expensive, and put it back? That's one of your warning signs straight away, where your mentality and your mindset is. Are you scarcity limiting yourself, or have you got an abundant mindset? So there's different ways of really, you know, looking at the methods, looking at your behaviors, looking at your emotions, looking at your mental state, your thought processes, as well as the spiritual aspect and the psychological aspect. So it's like a holistic approach. And then it's about creating that work-life balance. You know, you don't want to be that whole masculine do energy. You know, I have to work hard for my money. So Maisie, that's another common one. I have to work hard for my money. And I had this for years in the banking industry. You know, I'd go to work at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'd finish at 6. And then even because as well, in the office, there was this whole mentality that if you get to the office anytime after 8 o'clock in the morning, oh, are you doing part-time hours today, Sharon? Are you on a break today? And then also, if I had a lunch break, you know, you're entitled to a lunch break. If I had a lunch break, oh, you going for lunch? Oh, have you finished for the day? Oh, you know, that whole mentality that you're not taking the job seriously. So I wouldn't have a lunch. I'd work all the way straight through. And then if I was to get ready at 5 o'clock to like leave the office, and I'd leave at 5 o'clock, which I'm contracted to leave at, everybody would say, oh, are you working part-time today? Oh, you know, be really shocked, because the whole mentality, it was a masculine world. The whole mentality was you stay in the office till about 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, which is, you know, I'm not being sexist, but it's okay for men to do. But, you know, if you're a woman, you know, you've got household responsibilities, you've got kids and everything else. And hopefully we get into that equilibrium with male and females. But sometimes when you're in a masculine corporate environment, it really plays on your mind, and then you feel guilty. You judge yourself. You've got that whole limitations in your mind. Oh, I'm not working hard enough. Let's work harder because I'm feeling undervalued. I'm not getting recognized. I'm unappreciated. Let's do even more. Let's do even more. Let's pile on the responsibility. Let's outperform myself so I get recognized, which is what I did as well. And then you're on the verge of, like, I was going to say bankruptcy. You're on the verge of like of burnout. And you're like, oh my gosh. And this is what so many of my clients get to, that whole, I have to work hard for money. And then you think, well, where did that come from? Well, a lot of the time it came from the childhood programming. They looked at their parents, you know, and what were their parents doing? And I'm not like, you know, disrespecting or anything, you know, the parents, because they were doing, you know, the best they could with their limitations, with their thinking at that time, which then ancestral came from all of the generational, you know, their parents, their, you know, the grandparents, the great-great-grandparents. So it goes really deep, childhood, ancestral DNA stuff, even past lives. So I do astrology stuff, astrology readings for my clients as well. And we can identify the money blocks, the past life karma. So whether it's to do with relationships, whether it's to do with, you know, your work, your finances. So some people say to me, I can't progress. money comes and then it just goes. I don't have enough. I struggle. So some of the key signs is actually going back through even hypnosis and intuitive energy healing. The astrology helps as well to identify past life karma, to identify this stuff. And then they go on that healing journey. Yeah. So
I
yeah.
love that. I love that. And I went through your program. I love the
Yeah.
program. I think the biggest thing for
Thank you.
me during that time frame, everything that was going on in my life, I
Yeah.
was, and I mentioned this to you, I'm like, I'm hiding. I'm like, I'm staying
Yeah.
home. Nobody can see this. And you were like, what is the harm in people seeing? And I'm like, everything was back on me. I was like, oh, me. I'm putting this potential expectation out there that didn't even exist. So
Yeah.
I love that you're mentioning that. And I also remember whenever, you're talking about like acting as if the same things of you dressed a certain way, you put your person. So like the front of your body holds stress. And like for you guys out there, I'm going to talk a little bit about stress, but like the front of your body holds stress. And when it's
Yeah.
holding stress, it's impacting your emotions. It's impacting your future. It's impacting your personality and how you show up. So the way that you were responding to your environment was, I'm going to act as if, which means my personality has to reflect in that way. And I love that you were, talking about the guilt and everything else, because clients and all of our listeners, they're the same way. And I was the same way. I have to work harder and
Yeah.
sometimes more difficult. It was not about working smarter. It was about, oh, well, if I cheat the system by using some kind of automation, it was like, bro, it's going to save my time so I could do more, you know? But I'll never forget one of your things in the program. And you guys, I'm going to encourage just at some point work with her. But one of the things that you have in the program is there's a moment where you tell everybody like the recording and go to the mirror and go tell yourself, this is what a millionaire woman looks like. And I'm like, I'm just looking at myself. I remember the first thoughts. I'm like, it's me. I'm just like, it's me. And then I was like, wait, it's me. Wait, it's
Mm.
me. And so that shifted the perspective of what does a millionaire mindset do? And so I love that we're doing all these things and we're bringing all this to light. We're sharing all the things whenever it comes to that. So I'm curious though, when we talk about self-worth, how does this impact our ability to charge what we're worth or our investments in our business? Like, I know for a lot of people who own their own business, or even some of my
Yeah.
clients who I've worked with who are they're working for another company, that fear of asking for a raise, am I worth this and that and whatever? And you're talking about working overtime and like putting in the out.
Yeah.
Business owners do the same thing. And they're like, man, I don't get paid good enough for this. And it's like, what are you, what is your worth? So I'm curious, what are
Yeah.
your thoughts around that whenever it comes to the blocks and the work that you do?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That's a big, big area. So, in terms of your self-worth, first of all, what I'm going to say is it also comes down to self-love. And the way I'm going to interlink this, and I'm going to ask every one of you listening to this, including you, Maisie, this question. Okay. How much do you love yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest? And you don't have to answer me, okay? But for those of you listening, I want you to give yourself a number. You can say it out loud, you can write it down. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to challenge you. If that number is not a 9 or 10, or if it's not a 10, why? Why not? Okay? You're living, you're breathing. Without you, there'd be no you, for your family, for your partner, for your children, for society, for everybody, for your clients, for your peers. You are everything. You are your world. Now, it took me years and years, in fact, probably half of my life to understand that fact. And the reason is because probably I had my childhood programming where, in terms of being like from an Indian background, etc. But I'm not just saying it's just related to me in terms of culturally and, the background, but it was like that whole emotional detachment. There was no I love you, hugs, kisses and all of that stuff. But I was loved. But they showed it in a different way. It was like very hard working, got to go out, got to work, got to make sure that everybody's looked after, they've got their things, they're looked after. But then it was a case of I got into corporate world and I went to one of my first personal development workshops. And I can remember this like it was yesterday. And I'm a little bit digressing from your question, Maisie, but I hope you don't mind.
You're all
But
good.
I went to this workshop and everybody was in a circle. So I was sitting in the circle and I didn't know anybody. I just turned up to meet this guy called Richard. He was like this motivational speaker. And he basically said this. He said, "How is everybody doing?" To which I said, "I'm not bad. I'm okay. I'm so." Notice the energy there. I'm not bad. I'm okay. Why is he asking? What's it to him? Kind of thing. And then he's like, ask me the question. And so we all said, "Richard, how are you today?" And I'm thinking, this is just so bizarre. This is like, I'm in the wrong place here. "How are you?" To which he said, "I am amazing. I am a superhero pretending to be normal. I'm amazing. I am a superhero pretending to be normal." To which, at that point, I was in my 20s. I thought to myself, oh my gosh, this guy loves himself as if it was a bad thing. I totally thought it was a bad thing. It was negative. You shouldn't love yourself. Oh my gosh, this guy is selling tickets on himself. That's exactly how my mentality was. It's like, he's selling tickets on himself. Oh my gosh. Obviously, I've paid to go to this networking event anyway. But I was just thinking, why does he love himself so much? That's really wrong. You shouldn't stand there and say that. That's wrong. That's mental. That's crazy. And I just nodded my head and thought, no, he shouldn't do that. That's wrong. And then we carried on the whole workshop and stuff. But then over time, and this was because of the preconditioning probably I had as childhood, like, oh, you shouldn't love yourself. In terms of, I can remember my mom specifically, no disrespect to her, by the way. Oh, get off your high horse. You shouldn't be bragging, you shouldn't be boasting, you keep it to yourself. So all of my like achievements, it was like, oh no, you don't want to get big-headed, get off your high horse. It's like, oh, I shouldn't be on my high horse, I shouldn't love myself, I shouldn't appreciate myself, I shouldn't do all this. No disrespect to her because it was the upbringing. It was hereditary, it was like ancestral and stuff. So what happened then was I worked on my self-love over time, thinking actually, it's a good thing to love yourself. And then years ago, then I started working with a coach, like over, I think it was about 18, 19 years ago. And that coach specifically said to me and challenged me, like we've been talking, Maisie, to look in the mirror, to look in the mirror. And this is what you guys can do as well, listening to this. Every day, I challenge you for the next 30 days, you give yourself an incredible compliment every day. So we brush our teeth on autopilot, don't we? In the mornings, without fail, we don't forget. And I have to remind my little ones. I've got my Earth Angel who's 8. I have to still remind him, but we do it on autopilot. So why not do this on autopilot? So I always say to my clients, you go into the mirror every day for 30 days and you give yourself a compliment. Every day it has to be different. So you could say, oh, my hair is so beautiful today. I've got my luscious lips, but you don't just say the words. You feel it from your heart center. Because what then happens, you lift your energetic vibration. When you lift your energetic vibration, you then start to attract the circumstances, situations, events, even people that are in the exact same vibrational resonance as you. So if you're increasing your love, your self-love, it affects your brain chemicals as well, your happy hormones, serotonin, oxytocin, noradrenaline, all of that stuff. It also helps you attract your soulmate, by the way, in your relationship stuff because you're resonating at such a high level. But then what happens is you're supercharging your self-love, which then automatically supercharges your self-worth. And there may be the blocks underneath in terms of I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy enough, I have to work hard for money and all of that stuff. And I would say then it goes on in terms of like a healing journey, doing the inner mindset work. But self-love is the foundation. It's the ground. It's setting the groundwork first because the way you feel about yourself then reflects in the external world. It's not for the external world to validate you. It's for you to validate yourself, increase your self-love, increase your self-worth. And even if that means you give yourself self-care. So you balance that, like how we were saying before, Maisie, the work-life balance. Instead of work, masculine energy, burnout, you hold back. You activate your feminine, the divine feminine powers of flow. Allow yourself to just be in the moment. Have a cup of tea if you need to, instead of rushing around after the kids. Have that self-worth for yourself. Give yourself the time. not about people pleasing. Yes, you still have to do things for your partner and your children and things like that, and you still have to work, but it's about, the whole perspective, and give yourself that grace and that love and that self-worth.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And you
Thank
gave
you.
some great examples of things, practical steps that people could go do as well. And you say that, you ask the question. So mine is about, I was thinking, I was like, I'm like 9.5, 9.9, because I'm like, I've been doing the inner work, like
Yeah,
I truly love myself. And there's a couple of times where I get that arrogant, like it's not arrogance, but like I'm
that's the
always like,
thing.
people think
Yeah.
I'm arrogant.
No, that's the thing as well. I just want to mention there, because you've mentioned that, and that's such a good point, which I didn't mention, is you're not coming from an egotistic point of view in terms of, oh, look at me, I'm better than everybody else. No, because this is the key thing, and this is a quote that you've probably heard as well, in terms of, I'm only competing with the person I was yesterday. So I always say I'm competing with the old version of myself to become better. You're not competing with everybody else, you're competing with yourself to become better than you were yesterday. So it's not from an egotistic point of view, it's just from a love point of view. And you will know the difference because of the way that you feel. If you feel you've got your emotional, like, GPS system, as I call it, if you feel good with, giving yourself that self-care, that self-worth, that self-love, then it's a positive thing. If you're coming from a state of it feels a bit negative and a little bit niggly, then you could be coming from an ego point of view. So it's just having that realization and shifting it for the highest good for yourself.
I love that. No, and you're so right, because when people would ask me, hey, how are you doing today? My
Yeah.
answer is either, it's typically, oh, I'm doing fabulous. Like
Yeah, I love
that's just
that.
me. That's my answer.
Yeah.
Now, in astrology, of course, I follow more of Western astrology, but
Yeah.
I'm a Leo. So like I wear my crown and I'm like, dude,
Yeah.
my parents used to tell me all the time, the center of the universe doesn't revolve around you. And I was like, but
No.
it does.
It does.
Because Leo rules the sun.
Yeah.
It's like, of course it does. But even my partner, he tells me all the time. So, like yesterday, we were in a conversation and I said something, and he goes, "Are you wearing your crown?" He goes, I think you have like 20 different crowns every day." And I was like, all
Yeah.
the time, I'm always wearing it. I'm always spot on. But and again, he knows it's not from arrogance or egotistical or anything like that. It used to
Yeah.
be where he would say something and I'd be like, oh, I know. And he's like, I hate when you say that. And I'm like, I am confirming that belief, because that's not
Yeah.
always given to me. That was not always something. Like love was shown kind of like you. It was a little bit more harsh. It was you got to be tough. You got to be better than them. And
Yeah.
that, and it was that comparison game. Am I better than them? And so
Yeah.
it was that same mindset. And I'm like, now I just accept it, because I'm like, of course I am. It is who I am. It is who I am planning to be. It's who I desire to be, all these things. Is there
Yeah.
always room for improvement? Always,
Always.
but
The one other things that I say to that as well is, it's like when you put your crown on and you shine your biggest light. And I know you, Maisie, anyway. So I love the energy. So you shine your biggest light. Sometimes, and this is for each and every one of you out there, I want you to take note of this. Sometimes you may attract the moths. And I'm going to call it the moths because in the darkness, you have a light, and then all of a sudden, these insects come around you, the moths, and they're not going to like it. They're going to shun you. They're going to try and put you down the best you can. They're going to try and, pull you down towards their level. Now, the one thing to mention is you continue to be the lighthouse. You continue to shine your brightest light, because the first thing is, what other people think of you is none of your business, okay? Unless it's obviously people that are close to you and they're just wanting the best for you. And I always say, what other people think of me is none of my business, because quite frankly, it's none of your business. If they want to think about you, let them think about you, but you concentrate on you, your children, significant other, the things that are important to you. The other thing I was going to mention as well is, if somebody gets triggered by your light, and I've experienced this so many times in so many aspects of life, if somebody gets triggered by your light, it's because of an inner feeling they are experiencing. Something is triggering in them that's making them feel that way. So it's their own insecurities, which means, for example, when I used to say, like similar to you, Maisie, like somebody used to say, oh, how are you doing today? And when I was in corporate world, I used to say, oh, I'm okay, I'm not bad, I'm tired, all of the low vibe energy, until I started my personal development journey especially with Richard. And then I was like, making the decision when I used to walk to the office, they say, okay, today I'm going to, what's my power word? Okay, I'm great. And then I used to say, I'm great today, but I never used to feel it because I was still having that insecurity of, I can't be that special. I can't be that great. I can't love myself. But then over time, I kept doing it. I kept doing it. Oh, I mean, I'm incredible today. I'm amazing today. That I love that what you said, Maisie. I'm fabulous. All of that stuff. And then it's feeling it. And then people used to say, oh, what happy pills are you on? Oh, but it's because they probably haven't experienced it. So it's about giving them grace, and sending them love and things like that. And if they want to get into your world, just, tell them to do the self-love work and all of that stuff and just guiding them. And not everybody will want to go on that journey,
Mhm.
but accept that, understand that, but keep shining your light.
100%. And that brings me to the idea of the power of influence.
Yeah.
When you operate in a certain way. So just like if you walk into a room and it's a bunch of negative people and you're the only person that's bright and
Yes.
happy, or you got that Debbie Downer in your group or that negative Nancy and you're like, Lord
Yeah.
Jesus, this woman, you've got that person. It's like everybody dreads it whenever she comes around because you're like, oh, it's like
Gonna drain your
Eeyore going
energy.
through, you know? But here's the thing, when you become the light person, and I've been that person, like I have been
Yeah.
I don't understand how you're so bubbly. Do you not have
Yeah.
anything that goes wrong in your life? And I'm like, tons of shit goes wrong in my life, but I'm not sitting here dwelling on it. I don't want to continue to
Yeah.
think about it. I am that there's a light at the end of the tunnel for everything, you know?
Yeah.
You tell me no, I'm going to find a way to make it a yes.
Yeah. I love
Anything
that.
is possible. So, but in that mindset of that power of influence, it's how you change a room. I have noticed now, granted, I am not and I've had so many people tell me, well, you don't dress like, your profession of a holistic health practitioner and a trauma healer. And I'm like, so tell me, how does that person dress? Like, I am also a bodybuilder and have been, and I enjoy this and I love my life. And so
Yeah.
I want to wear whatever I want to wear. Now, when I dress up, I will dress up happily. I'm like, oh, so excited. Takes a little bit longer to do makeup and everything like, but you know what? I'm pretty at all times. But it's just that power of influence. The more that you shine your light, the more that you put yourself into that space of, yes, I'm being seen. It's that visibility block, which is one of your
Mm.
blocks in the program. And that was mine. That was a big thing of mine. I kept saying, oh, it's a money block. Oh, it's a results block. And you were like, why don't we go look at the visibility? What are you afraid of being seen? And I was like, oh, everything, But again, that's it. It's that power of influence. When you become that
Yeah.
person of influence that people just look up to, you become that mentor, you become that. And of course, there's the self-worth wins. Like, I'm not good enough for that, but it's like, I'm
Mhm.
doing it. So obviously I am, but how you can change a room that's dark and gloomy and make a person smile just because you initially smiled and said hello and like lit up a room with that, it changes the entire energy, the entire room. It changes everything in the collective. Like collectively, you'll watch people shift and move. Like I would have
Yeah.
people who, even I don't like Debbie Downers and negative Nancy's. I just don't. I can't handle that. But when people are their posture,
Yeah.
the work that I do is also through workouts and incorporating somatic workouts. I'm like, guys, when you posture,
I just do mine.
you're opening your chest too. You're opening your
Yeah.
heart to more. And sometimes that's scary because it's like, oh, I'm going to get hurt. So I'm going to cower back
Mm.
and, you know, shield myself. But whenever
Yeah.
you're opening in that way, and I watch a lot of my clients do that, especially if they're doing like the physical health side of things, if we're doing progress photos or whatever, you'll see them be like this in the beginning. And
Uh,
then eventually
yeah.
start to see them open up. And I'm like, oh, well, hot damn, look at that. Look at you, girl. Look at you. Look at that smile on your face, because you're in that place of self love and self confidence. So I love all the things that we have discussed today. I love the money mindset, the self worth that's tied to it. And, just I'm excited. At some point, I would love to have you back for discussing more things and all of
I'd
that and
love
how
to.
we could go on for hours with this. So I love this.
Yeah.
I am curious, how can people find you? What is something that you want to share today that you want to give that you just want to tell people to come work with you? Like, I want people to come work with you. So
Oh, thank you.
how do you want to, like, how can they reach you and find you?
Yeah, definitely. And it's been lovely to be here, definitely. And I'd love to come back. But yeah, so people can reach out to me across social media. So just search me, Sharan Sammi, and you can follow me on Facebook, also on Instagram. So I'm there. I've also got a private women's only group as well called Anything is Possible, because that's what I believe. So yeah, you can come and join Anything is Possible. I share a lot of coaching techniques, manifesting tools, golden nuggets, a lot of inspiration, motivation, psychic readings, healings, astrology, the whole shebang to, you know, really uplift your energy. So yeah, come and join the Anything is Possible group. And also, if you would like to dive into money blocks, mindset blocks, and you'd really want to have that unique approach in terms of, you know, what is going on for me? So astrologically, I can help you. So if you would like to order an astrology analysis of your money blocks, then you can do that. I've got a special offer on just for the people listening to Maisie's talk today on the podcast. So instead of £99, I can do that for £33. So you just need to just click the link, and there's a discount code there. Put the discount code in so you don't pay the 99, it's £33. And what happens is you will then just give me your personal information in terms of your date of birth, time of birth. If you don't have the time, that's okay. Your location. And then what I will do is I will specifically bring up your chart through my astrology system, and I will literally analyze your chart, spend time doing that, and type up a report for you in terms of looking at the key astrological influences and aspects that are really influencing your money side of things, your capability, your work, your finances, looking at the money blocks. And then I'll also tune in and give you specific guidance so that you can start to turn this around. So if you'd like that, just click on the link below. And yeah, so let's connect. I've also got my
Awesome.
Manifesting Money in Abundance group program, but you can have details of that. That's on my main website as well, sharonsammi.com.
And I'm
So
gonna
thank
tell
you.
y'all she's the real deal. So
Thank
go
you.
listen, go do. I mean, you've helped me in so many ways in the past year that we've worked together. So, and still going strong. So I'm excited
Yay.
for that. Thank you. All right. Thank you for being with us today.
Oh,
I
you're
greatly
welcome.
appreciate it. And I'm excited to have you back at some point. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Hope this was inspiring and educational for you. And I'll catch you guys on the flip side.